Right, hello. Welcome along everybody to this final session in our Find Your Future Day of Law events. My name is Joss Harrison and I am one of the careers consultants, and I'm going to be hosting this event this afternoon. Our panel, we've got a brilliant panel here for you, and before I introduce them, I'm just going to go through just a little bit of housekeeping about how the session will run. And I'm hesitating. Oh, there we go. Yes. So just to say that the session is being recorded. So if you don't wish to appear on the camera on the recording for any reason, please make sure your camera is off. Please make the most of this opportunity to ask questions. So if questions occur to you as we're going along, please just add them into the chat. But there will also be some time once all the speakers have given their presentations to actually unmute your microphone and ask questions in person if that's better at all. So we will come to that once we've heard from our speakers. And our speakers, we're delighted. We've got three really fantastic, interesting law firms: Holman, Fenwick, Willian, Clyde Co, Weightmans. And then for anyone interested in the bar, we've got the Bar Council, who are going to be able to tell us about careers at the bar and answer your questions about that. So that's the running order. And I think without further ado, I'm delighted to hand over to Sarah from Holman, Fenwick, Willian. Sarah.
Thank you so much, Joss. That's great. Thank you. So yeah, my name's Sarah. I'm one of the HR managers at HFW, we go by, which is a law firm based in London with also global offices. So we've got 19 offices around the world. In terms of what we do, we're a little bit different, perhaps from lots of kind of your more mainstream law firms, I suppose, by which I mean sort of the Magic Circle firms and Silver Circle firms, in the sense that we focus on industry sectors. So what we do is, rather than doing all types of law for all types of clients, we focus in on clients in the shipping, energy, construction, commodities, aviation and insurance industries. In terms of what that means for you as students, really, I guess what I would say is you don't have to have a working knowledge of any of those industries at all. You just have to be interested in finding out more about them. So, you know, to know that they're the sorts of sectors that we work in. And it gives kind of a tangibility to the law. So you know, the sorts of people that apply to us are people that sort of want to see the law in a real world context. So you can see a ship, you can see a energy kind of plant, you can see a wind turbine. And it's all to do with kind of putting the law into those kind of practical real world contexts. Like I said, we have lots of international offices, and we've got 19 in total, and international work is really, really important to us. So if you do something like shipping and aviation, you can't do that in a domestic context. That is an inherently international kind of industry. And because of that, we kind of pride ourselves on having international training contracts. So all of our trainees do 4 6-month seats, and in non-COVID times, obviously, you know, things have been a bit different. The world has been a bit different for the last 18 months, and we haven't had international secondments, but normally all of our trainees go abroad for at least 6 months of their training contract, and some of them can do more than 1 6-month stint abroad. So we have actually had one trainee who've spent the majority of their training contract outside of London, kind of rotating around different international offices. Obviously it is a London training programme, so it's for people that want to be England and Wales solicitors, but in all of the locations that we're based, kind of our export in a way is our knowledge of the English legal system. So if you work in Singapore or Hong Kong or Dubai or wherever it may be, you're still practicing English law. We're relatively, well, I say small in the context of law firms. We're probably a mid-sized firm, and we only take 15 trainees a year, which is quite different again from some of kind of the bigger Magic Circle, for example, firms that might take up to 100. I'm not saying it's better, but it's just different. You know, again, it appeals to people that want to be part of something where, you know, you can get to know people, you can really build kind of deep relationships. And we recruit through our our vacation schemes. So I'm sure we'll talk about that in today's session, but essentially we encourage people that are interested in finding out more about us to do a vacation scheme with us. And we do vacation schemes in the spring and also the summer. Applications are open now. They start on the 31st of January, and that's just because we know that lots of people won't have had any exposure to shipping or energy. You know, we don't expect you to have that exposure, but obviously the vacation scheme gives you an opportunity to kind of try before you buy. You can work out if you genuinely see yourself working in these sorts of kind of legal areas. We're also recruiting for training contracts, but again, I'm sure we all are here, the three law firms anyway, but we're open for training contracts too, and we shut on the 31st of July. So yeah, essentially we're an international firm. We work in industry sectors, and it's kind of a mid-sized firm or smaller side of mid-size. So you know, we pride ourselves on having kind of a really good culture, kind of, you know, collaborate with each other, really collegiate. So yeah, an alternative choice to perhaps, you know, those of you that have maybe only heard about the sort of more, say, corporate finance type firms.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Faye. Okay, shall we move on now to Clyde Co and Eleanor?
Yep. Hi everyone, I'm Ellie Peary. I'm a senior associate at Clyde Co in the property and liability team, and I'm based in the Manchester office. I'm 5 years qualified and I did my training contract with Clyde Co, so I'm quite familiar with the application process, albeit I think it will have changed slightly since the 7 years ago when I did it. I did a geography degree at Newcastle University, followed by the GDL and the LPC, so not the traditional route into law. The focus of my particular practice area is insurance disputes as a result of property damage, and I do a mixture of policy advices, defended liability claims and subrogated recovery claims on the part of insurers. Usually these are breach of contract and tortious claims. And I have a mix of litigated and pre-litigated cases, so quite a sort of wide range of work in my particular team. In terms of Clyde Co as a firm, we're an international law firm with global reach. We've got offices in over 50 cities on 6 continents now, and we have approximately 440 partners and a further 1,800 lawyers across those offices. We provide a complete legal service to our clients, so we cover all practice areas, but we have particular specialisms in international trade, insurance, shipping and aviation, and we tend to have a strong focus on litigation and dispute resolution, so a lot of the areas that we practice in are litigation based. That's not to say that we don't have non-contentious work as well. We've obviously got the usual corporate teams, employment teams, etc. But there is quite a strong focus on litigation within Clyde Co. We've got a very friendly and inclusive culture, and we believe that diversity is the key to our success. We've got a number of programs in the diversity area, and we also have quite a strong social side of the firm. It was obviously interrupted by COVID, but we did still manage to carry on and have a number of virtual events, albeit hopefully we'll now start getting back to normal and be able to host a few face-to-face events. We've got the sports and social committee, which is sort of responsible for organising sporting activities and social events throughout the year. In terms of what we're recruiting for training contracts as well, with a start date of August 2024. We offer about 50 training contracts per year across our offices in London, Manchester and also the Middle East and North Africa. We have about 30 to 40 trainees every year in London and about 4 to 5 in each of Manchester and the Middle East and North Africa. We do have those 4 to 5 training contracts which are specifically based in the Middle East and North Africa, but they're usually offered to complete a seat in London. And those UK trainees also have the opportunity to do a secondment in one of the overseas offices. We recruit for training contracts exclusively through the vacation scheme. So we've got 3 this year. We've got the winter vacation scheme in December of this year. We've got the spring vacation scheme in April next year. And we've got the summer vacation scheme in June next year. Applications are now open and the winter vacation scheme closes on the 1st of November, and For the spring and summer ones, they close on the 2nd of January 2022, and applications are to be made via the website. We do encourage early applications because the assessment centres and interviews, etc., are completed on a rolling basis. So the sooner you get your application in, the better. And during the vacation schemes, you'll spend time in a couple of different departments, so you can understand the type of work that we do and get a feel for the firm. And you'll do sort of your interviews and assessment centres during that vacation scheme, and then training contract offers will be made at the conclusion of the vacation schemes. We also offer a Bright Futures programme, which is for first-year law students and penultimate year non-law students from a lower socioeconomic status group to gain insight into the firm. That's a sort of 9-month-long programme where you get mentoring during that 9 months, and you also attend at the firm for a 1-week placement to shadow a lawyer in one of our teams. So you get quite a good insight into the firm. You're also invited to attend at the social events during that 9-month period, and you then have the potential to fast track onto one of our vacation schemes, which you're then assessed for a training contract during that vacation scheme. So the applications are open now, and that is via our website. I think you're still on mute, John.
Yes, I was. Sorry, I need to get the hang of this still. Thank you very much. That was great. Thank you. Can we move on now and hear from Denise at Weightmans? Are you there, Denise? I think you're on mute as well, Denise. Yes.
Yeah, I think I've unmuted myself, but my connection's unstable. Can you hear me? Yeah, I can't hear anybody.
We can hear you very clearly.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Fab. Okay, so I'll attempt to share my slides. If it's okay, if I just take your slides off, Joss, and put mine up. Let's have a little go. Okay. Fab. Okay, can you see those okay? Fab. So yes, to introduce myself, my name's Denise Wright, and I work for Weightmans. I've worked for Weightmans for around 12 years now, and my role is in the early careers team. So I lead the team. We kind of cover everything from recruitment, kind of coming into universities, obviously talking to people about our programs for graduates and apprentices as well for school leavers. And then also while people are with us, we oversee those programs, do the seat rotations, organise their training, and kind of mentor them up until qualification as solicitor. So probably the loveliest job in HR, I'm always told. So I'm going to talk about Weightmans a little bit today, and who we are and also what our programs are. So if we have a look. So yeah, we have been around for nearly 200 years. So I think we're kind of approaching our 200-year anniversary in 2027. So we're all very excited for parties and branded merchandise to celebrate our 200-year anniversary. And we're a national firm, so we have got offices across the country. And we are always looking for mergers, so that list may grow, but we are UK based, so we don't have any overseas offices. There's no plans to go overseas. We're a top employer in the UK for 14 years running, which is something that we're massively proud of. So that's top employers out of all of the companies, so not just law firms, but your M&S and your KPMGs and everyone else. And you kind of assessed in terms of your training and development, your diversity and inclusion, your policies. And so we're immensely proud of our top employer awards. Just over 1,300 people, about 200 of those are partners. We are a full service law firm, so we kind of can offer a full service to our clients across a range of different segments. So we cover pretty much everything apart from human rights and criminal. So we've got our employment, corporate, we've got lots of litigation teams, insurance teams. We represent a lot of the NHS bodies, the police. We do a lot of family work and wills as well. So our trainees tend to be a very mixed bag of personalities and interests, because obviously they're very different teams doing very different types of work. So we recruit for all of those. We take on up to 18 trainees a year, so not a huge intake, but we do have really high retention rates, so we do recruit to keep everyone. And a lot of our partners are former trainees. I think over half the board did their training with Weightmans. So people do generally tend to stay with us. So in terms of our programme, it's a little bit different. So last year we started our applications for the SQE route rather than the traditional training contract route with LPC. So it does look really different. We made offers for 2022 starts last year. So, or this year, actually, this summer. So we're looking in this round of recruitment to recruit for 2023 starts. So that means that if you are in your second year or onwards, then you can apply now. And you could essentially, the earliest you could start is you could graduate in the summer and then start with us in the September. And it's a 32-month programme rather than your kind of traditional 2 years. So you come straight in from uni, and the reason why you do that is because we're not kind of front loading that SQE1 content. You're actually going to do that while you're with us. So you'll do 4 days a week on a team in 6-month placements, moving around seats into different areas of the business. And we work really closely with our trainees to identify where they'd like to be based and what they're interested in when we're allocating those seats. So you have 4 days a week kind of, learning from those legal experts around you, completing work and developing your skills in the role. And then 1 day a week would be dedicated to study. So you'd be working with BPP University Law School. And during that 1 day a week, you'll be covering your SQE1 content in your first year and sitting your SQE1 exams at the end of your first year. And then the second year, you'll start covering your content for your SQE2 and those assessments for within the second year, up until qualification as a solicitor. So even though it's a 32-month programme, so it's slightly longer than your traditional training contract, obviously because you're coming into the firm earlier, it just means that you're skipping that time as, I guess, that extended time as being a student where you would have been covering the LPC, and you obviously come in straight away from day one earning a trainee salary. So that's us really, whistle stop tour of Weightmans. Applications are open now until the 10th of March. If you want to apply for a vacation scheme, then you can do. We don't assess people on vacation schemes, and we don't mind if you do it or you don't. You can just tick a little box to say if you'd like to be considered for one, and then you'd either be offered a place on a vacation scheme and an assessment centre in June, or just a place on an assessment centre.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much, Denise. Thank you. Right, to move on now to our final speaker, who is Beth from the Bar Council. So I'm just going to go back and share my screen, if that's okay. And then Beth, if you're there, I'm just going to hopefully put a spotlight on you, which I hope won't be painful. There we go.
Hello, so I'm a little bit of an anomaly. I am not a lawyer, but I'm here to talk about the route to becoming a barrister, for those who are considering still whether they want to become a solicitor or a barrister, or perhaps to open up that potential to some who may not have considered the barrister route. So to become a barrister, there are 3 basic stages. First, academic, which would be your law degree or GDL. Next, you would do what is known as the vocational stage of training, which is your bar course with a university. And whilst you do that, you also need to complete 10 qualifying sessions, which are standalone educational events with an Inn of Court. There are 4 Inns of Court, and we are membership organisations for barristers. They are the only organisations that have the capacity to call someone to the bar, so to declare someone fit and proper to practice as a barrister in England and Wales. And they have a continual function throughout a barrister's professional development and your work going forward. And then finally, to be a fully fledged qualified barrister, you must complete the final stage of training, which is commonly known as pupillage, and that's a year-long work experience with either a set of chambers or another approved training organisation like the Government Legal Service. So one of the big differences between barristers and solicitors is the majority of barristers are self-employed, which can be very appealing for some. It means you are your own boss. The majority of barristers are based in a chambers, which is a group of barristers who all club together to pay joint fees like the cost of hiring office space, the cost of support staff like clerks, and to also pay pupillage fees for those who are training to be barristers and get an income for the year that they're training. But you are your own boss, you keep the money that you make, although you also have to factor in things like tax, pension, and all those things that self-employed people have to consider. A small number of barristers are employed, so some solicitors firms do employ barristers, and organisations like the Government Legal Service have a lot of employed barristers. They are often in crime and immigration law. The daily life of a barrister can vary widely depending on which area of practice someone specialises in. So like becoming a solicitor, there's a lot of options with areas of law you might wish to consider. Barristers tend to be more specialist in the areas that they work in, and practice can vary wildly. If, for example, you become a criminal barrister or a family barrister, you will likely spend almost all your working life in court. You will be in court on a daily basis. However, if you go into tax or something more commercial, you might not be in court anywhere near as much, and it might be actually weeks upon a time that you find yourself not going to a courtroom. And some areas of practice, you probably want to be keeping things out of court rather than getting them into court. So what barristers do varies dependent on the area they specialise in. What you will want to be considering now, if being a barrister is potentially the path for you, and to help you actually work out whether being a barrister might be the right choice, would be to try and get something called a mini pupillage. A mini pupillage is work shadowing a barrister in chambers or in court for 1 to 5 days. It's normally unpaid, but there are options to help you finance those if you're worried about the financial cost. So the Inns of Court will offer financial support, as do some chambers. You apply for those directly with chambers, and they open on a different basis dependent on chambers. So you'll have to look up the chambers that you're interested in and their practice area in order to find out when their mini pupillages are open for application. And you will also want to consider applying for pupillage. The majority of pupillage applications are done through the Bar Council's pupillage gateway. Sorry, that's quite hard to say. But they open at different times of year, and some chambers still do pupillage applications internally. The bar is quite separated. There isn't a lot of uniformity across the profession, so you will want to do quite a bit of digging and look into individual chambers as well. So that was a very, very quick whistle-stop tour of sort of the barrister route, but I hope that covered kind of the basics for you.
That was really helpful. Thank you very much. Okay, well, we've got to the end of our overviews, so thank you all for those. And we don't have any questions in the chat at the moment. So would anybody like to ask a question? Feel free to unmute your microphone and ask. While you're thinking about it, if it's okay, I'll be a bit cheeky and jump in with some questions. And I've got 2 really specific questions, actually. One was for Eleanor. You didn't mention any training contracts in your Newcastle office. Are there no training contracts in Newcastle, or is it just kind of this year or something?
That is a good question. I don't think that there are any specific training contracts in the Newcastle office. I think it's London, Manchester, and then the Dubai training contract. But I will double check with our graduate recruitment. Right. It may be that if there's not a specific Newcastle-based training contract, it may be that there's the opportunity to go to the Newcastle office for one of the seats.
Sure. Okay, thank you. I was curious. So that was my first question. My second question was actually to Denise, and I was just really interested in your new SQE friendly program. And can I just double check, is that path available to both law and non-law students?
It is, yeah, sorry. So if you're non-law, then we'd still require you to do a kind of GDL or a PGDL or the equivalent after your degree. So you could apply from your third year onwards.
Okay, and would you ever sponsor anybody's GDL or?
Pardon? My signal's not very good.
Sorry, I was just wondering, does the firm ever sponsor GDLs, or would somebody have to come to you having been through that?
Yeah, we don't sponsor the GDL, unfortunately. Yeah.
Thank you. Right, I see a hand up here. Ailsa?
Yeah, just wanted to ask, it was great hearing, Ellie, that you're a geography graduate, so it shows that, you know, people from non-law can get into things. But I was just wondering, from all your points of view, because we know how competitive it is to get into, you know, either the placements, etc. How can a non-law student really show potential if they've not maybe gone through that route, the traditional law route?
I would say just do sort of your own research into the particular law firms that you want to apply for, and make sure you've got commercial awareness. So just awareness of, you know, business development and things like that in terms of getting yourself ahead. But I don't think it puts you at any disadvantage doing the non-law route. Obviously you do the GDL, and that sort of brings you up to speed quite quickly in terms of the key modules. So you do your tort and your contract law, etc. And I think certainly from Clyde & Co's perspective, I think they look at both the non-law and the law route in terms of intake of trainees. I think there was quite a mixture, certainly in my intake and just generally throughout the firm in terms of qualified solicitors. We've got a good mix of, you know, people who did the straight law route and people who did the non-law route. I personally did the non-law route just because at the time of finishing my A-levels, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew that the law route would remain open to me. So I just did something that I knew that I enjoyed.
Great, thank you.
Any?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. I just wanted to completely agree with that and say that in our intake of trainees, it generally evens out as 50-50 law and non-law. That's not because we have a quota, it's just genuinely the way that, you know, things tend to fall. And I think sometimes non-law students feel are somehow apologetic in the recruitment process for the fact they haven't studied law, and you don't need to be, because a lot of what we do is around looking at your skills anyway, so soft skills. It's not about, you know, looking to see whether somebody understands a statute book or, you know, something about the law, because, you know, you get trained that in the training contract. So yeah, I would just say to non-law students, focus on your strengths in the same way that law students do as well, and think about, you know, team working, attention to detail, you know, performance under pressure, all the things that you, I'm sure, will have good examples of. And don't worry about the fact that you haven't studied law. Of course you need to do your research, of course you need to look into the different firms and, you know, pupilages and, you know, Beth for you as well, but you know, don't feel that you're somehow at a disadvantage, because you're really, really not.
Can I just ask, kind of in relation to that, do you ever have different expectations of law students because they've studied law? Just a question for anybody who would
I can say that from our perspective, the only difference is if somebody studied law, we might sometimes ask them a legal question, because obviously it's fair game to ask them about something they've studied. And that's the only difference in the recruitment process. Other than that, no, the expectations are the same.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah, ours are the same as well. We do blind interviews, so your interviewer would know what degree you'd done, or what university you'd been to, or anything. So they'll ask competency-based questions based on skills and experience. So, and again, we tend to find we've got a really good mix. People just bring different things to the table, different skills, different experiences. We have people in second, third careers. So absolutely, we're just assessing the skills, and then we will train you in what you need to know.
Thank you. Any more? I'm just doing a run through for any hands.
I was just going to say, when it comes to the bar as well, it's not at all unusual to have done a GDL and not studied law or to be a career changer. It's very common. And when it comes to bar, a lot of focus is put on other skills that you've developed, in particular public speaking. A lot of being a barrister is advocating in court, so any kind of public speaking, any kind of mooting or debating experience that students can get, especially at university stage, is invaluable if you want to consider the bar route.
Thank you. Thanks, Beth. Laura, I see you have a hand up. Do you want to go ahead and ask your question? Thank you.
Yes, I guess this could go to anyone on the panel, really. Talking about trying to stand out in applications and things like that. Was there anything that you guys did when you were at university or training that really helped you to get that first job in law?
I would say it's about building sort of a rounded CV and having a number of different examples that you can draw from. So it's maybe, you know, a job in a local bar, you know, you can draw on your experience there dealing with customers and the clubs that you join whilst you're at university, showing that you're a team player and you're on a team. I think it's just about having various different examples on your CV that you can draw from. I don't think everything necessarily has to be sort of legally focused, and I just think it's about having a range of different examples that you can draw from that you can say are relevant to the role that you want to go into.
Would anybody else like to add anything? Or
Yeah, I'd echo that really from Eleanor, that, you know, it's and also not to downplay those non-legal examples that you've got. And people sometimes, especially in interviews, will try to stick to their work experience. We don't have any requirements for work experience, and we don't score it at all through the process. We don't expect people to have had that because we know it's tricky to get hold of. But you'll find that people will try to stick to their 1 week of photocopying in Hill Dickinson's throughout the whole interview, whereas actually they could have had really good customer facing jobs in, you know, Next, Burger King, anywhere at all. If you're working with the general public and it's part of a team, you've generally got some really strong examples for skills-based questions and competency-based questions. So utilize that in your interview and draw on that experience. Getting yourselves involved in groups in university, anything that you've got where you've got an opportunity to be working as part of a team, getting involved in projects, put yourself into it even if it's outside your comfort zone, because just kind of widening that experience, working with different types of people, that's always going to help you in any application process. But we generally tend to keep our applications very kind of removed from experience, so we don't have any job requirement, any work experience requirements, and we don't ask people questions around their experiences either. So we ask things like, why is client care important in a law firm? So anybody could answer that with a bit of research and a bit of kind of understanding, and then we're looking at how the answer is structured, things like punctuation and grammar, but also whether it's relevant to Weightmans, you know, whether it's a well thought out answer. And we do that because we know that people have got such a vast range of different experiences, so we try to keep it as neutral as possible. But then some people will try to kind of shoehorn in their experiences because they really want to tell us about the gap year in somewhere where they've changed the world and they lose marks for relevancy. So answer the question that you're asked and not one that you want to be asked. That's another one. And in interviews, so, which is, yeah, that's from me.
just on that topic, those of you who are involved in recruitment, are there any more don't do this kind of things you'd like to share, perhaps, where people do stray into making errors?
I would maybe just build on what Denise was just saying there about don't focus on what you've done, but focus on what you've gained from the things that you've done. And, you know, anybody can write a list and say, I'm a brilliant team player, you know, I always put my all into things. I've had loads of examples of taking on responsibility, but that tells us nothing. Actually, what we're looking for is evidence. You know, so you want to tell us, this is a team I worked in, you know, this is what I did, this is what made the team successful, this was the part that I played. You know, the same for responsibility. You know, what was your actual role? What would we see you doing if we'd kind of watched you? So yeah, this is a job where, you know, going out and looking for evidence and objectivity and things like that is really important. And that's kind of the same sort of mindset that we take when we're reviewing your application. So yeah, I don't say that to make it sound daunting. I just say that to, you know, really impress on the importance of giving tangible examples of the skills that you've built. So I always say to people, just do a spider diagram, just write down, you know, what does a solicitor do? What skills do they need? You know, and then for each of those skills, have some really good examples. And, you know, like we said, it could be from working in Burger King. It could be from, you know, playing in a sports team. It doesn't need to be from being in an international law firm or doing something super swanky. It could be from, you know, just anything that you've done in your life, really.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Would anybody else like to add anything to that? Just if you did have anything to say.
I would say also try where you can to not give the cliched answer. So when coming to the bar, if you decide to come to the bar, you will get asked at some point along the way why you want to be a barrister. Please, please, please do not say because you're passionate about law, because the person asking you will have heard that question 100 times probably that day. Please give an answer that tells them something about who you are. We're not looking for little legal robots. We don't expect you to come to us as, you know, fully fledged, you know, perfect barristers. We do want to see that you have the potential to be a good barrister, but also that you're a human being too. So try and think of an original answer. There's also a lot of opportunities when it comes to interviews for pupillage or scholarship or mini pupillages when it comes to being a barrister, to inject a little bit of personality into it. A lot of times you may be asked to give a question that you would like to be asked in your application form. That is your chance to highlight something you're really, really keen to talk about. So as Denise said, if you took a gap year and changed the world and really, really want to talk about it, this is your chance to get them to ask you about it. So you get to wax lyrical on that. Or there's always a chance to put additional information on every application form, and that is your chance to put relevant information that can really put you, show, you know, something individual, something memorable, something different about you that will just put you above another candidate potentially.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Beth. How are we doing? How are we doing? Would it be okay if I asked another question? I can be quite dangerous with this. I can keep asking questions, I'm afraid. But would it be possible for any of you to say something about working as a paralegal? The reason I kind of ask this is I work with a lot of law students, and increasingly I see they don't always go through very smoothly from degree, LPC into training contract, and the same for the bar as well. That they might have to take, you know, at least maybe 2 or 3 attempts to get a training contract, and very often paralegal work can be part of that journey. And much of the kind of literature that they read about careers never really kind of addresses this. It kind of gives the impression that it's all very smooth. So I'd just be interested in your thoughts on the value of paralegaling or not, whether your firm ever recruits trainees from amongst the ranks of your paralegals, just anything around it that you would be able to share would be great. Thank you.
I'm happy to say that for us, being a paralegal is hugely valuable. And I would never say to somebody, don't go out there and seek out a paralegal opportunity, because you're going to learn so much through being inside a law firm and, you know, familiarizing yourself with what it's like and the day-to-day tasks and things like that. It doesn't necessarily lead to a training contract. Certainly it doesn't for us, but it can do. So we have examples of people that have paralegaled us that have then gone on to apply for training contracts and been successful. And also we have examples of people that unfortunately haven't been successful. So for us, anyone that paralegals paralegals with us, comes in, and then if they decide they want to apply for training contract, they just do so in the same way as any other candidate. So really I would view the paralegal opportunity as an opportunity, and then it's what you make of that opportunity in terms of, you know, using that in the interview process to talk about the skills that you've gained and things like that. That's definitely not to discredit being a paralegal, but it's just to say that it, you know, you still, for lots of firms, you still have to go through the same recruitment process to secure a training contract, but you would come into it having gained loads of extra skills through going through the paralegal route, if that makes sense.
That makes complete sense. Thank you. Thank you. What about at Weightmans, Denise?
So we do have quite a large paralegal population at Weightmans, and we run a separate process for paralegals in terms of training contracts every year. So I'd say that, for example, this summer, out of we offered 19, and 8 of those were internal, who are existing paralegals in the business. So again, as Sarah said, there's no guarantees when you're coming into a firm that you'll be secure in a training contract if you're coming into a paralegal role, and we do tend to find there's quite a high turnover with grads who come in, and that's because they might be secure in a training contract with us or elsewhere or going on somewhere else. So we do have to manage those expectations, but we do work with people who are aspiring to progress and do development plans for them. But a lot of it is down to, you know, their performance, and ultimately in the assessment centre whether they, you know, they're still ranked against external candidates, you know, whether they perform on the day. But we do kind of source quite a few of our trainees from our paralegal population.
Okay, that's really interesting to know. Thank you.
I'd say a majority of people don't come in second year of uni, and I always say this when I'm talking to students, I say the earliest point you can come in, because actually a majority of the people that we have who come through the training contract process are after that point, and a lot of them are working as paralegals or in their 3rd year, or they just graduated and they come in paralegal for us before they start.
Yeah, it's something I just see a lot in my work with law students. They think the world can be over when they fail to get everything lined up as they come into their final year, and it's just so not the case, No. It's good to know about that. Do you have any insight into it at all at Clyde Co, Eleanor?
Yeah, so it's actually a very similar process to at Weightmans, in that the paralegals get assessed against the exact same criteria as external candidates, and you follow the same process. You'd be expected to do the same assessment centre, the same interview. It's all exactly the same. Obviously, you wouldn't be expected to do the vacation scheme because you're already working at the firm and within the team, so you kind of get that exposure anyway. But the assessment is exactly the same, and we do recruit a number each year from our sort of pool of paralegals. There's no sort of set number, but I know there's usually maybe 4 or 5 paralegals across the firm that will tend to get awarded the training contracts. And we also sometimes have, once you've been awarded a training contract, because it's recruited 2 years in advance, you can sometimes be offered a paralegal role if you're finished your degree and your LPC, to sort of tide you over until you get through to that training contract intake that you've been accepted into. But I think generally the paralegal role is quite invaluable. I mean, we have a number in each different team, and I think once you then start your training contract, you have quite a good understanding of how the firm works, and you can really hit the ground running because you understand all of the, you know, the processes and the basic foundations, and then you just go into each team and you can just learn the particular sort of technical specialisms in each area then.
Thank you. That's really heartening to know, both in terms of, you know, there is life if everything doesn't happen for you smoothly the first time round, but equally you still can break into a firm absolutely from the outside, so it's good on both hands. And I guess, Beth, I mean, I hear tales of it can take quite a while for people to secure pupillage, that people can go through several rounds of applications before they make it and get that elusive pupillage.
Yes, for those thinking of becoming a barrister, be warned, it is tough and you will get rejected at least once. It's very harsh to say, but very, very, very few people get pupillage on their first application. And that does not mean you won't get pupillage. That doesn't mean you won't be an excellent barrister. It just means you've got to pick yourself up, dust yourself off and apply again. And there are things that you can do to, you you know, get more experience and fill the time in between. There is a 5-year period between getting called to the bar and you having to secure pupillage. And for some barristers, it does take 5 years to get that. But in that meantime, you can be working as a paralegal, you can be working in a set of chambers, you can work for a judge. There's a lot of law-related experience that you can look into and be building whilst you're building your CV for the next pupillage application round. And that's also where the Inns of Court come in. A large part of what we do is supporting students to get pupillage and helping you build those skills, helping you find relevant work experience, helping you keep your eye in the law whilst you're going through the pupillage application stage.
So it is a tough career, but there's a lot of support there. There is a lot of support. Okay, right, I'm just going to do one more run through and make sure I haven't missed any hands, but I think speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, so I think we will draw things to a conclusion, if I can just get my slides to move on. Yes, and that's first and foremost just to say thank you very much to all of our panel. Can we give you a virtual round of applause, I think? So thank you. Just thank you for your time. Thank you for your really useful, insightful answers. I plan to be quoting from you all quite a lot in the weeks and months to come. I see Ailsa has put, oh no, these are people clapping, not putting up hands, sorry. I assume, yes, thank you. Oh, Isabel, do you have a question or are you clapping? No, you've put your hand down, sorry. Right, okay, I need to do a quick feedback poll if that is okay. So I'm just going to launch that, and this will just help our planning team going forward. So I will launch that now. So you should be seeing the questions. So I'd be really grateful if you could take a minute to fill that in. Anybody? Thank you very much. Thank you. Right. And that was fantastic. Thank you. Right. Okay. So thank you very much for coming. And yes, I think we will call it. We'll call it an afternoon.
Yeah.
And it's lovely to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'll stop this recording.